All right, what's going on, everybody? We are back. All right, we have a new week, man. We had a crazy busy week. Last 2 weeks were a crazy amount of fights, a lot of content. Welcome if you are new to the channel. Welcome to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that button right now. Hit the bell notification as well, so you'll be alerted whenever I drop new content. And shout out to all the old supporters of the channel. I really appreciate you guys for being here over the years. Now, if you are new, 154 has been my favorite division for a long time since I've had this channel. Normally, some point throughout the year, I will do a video just discussing what should be happening going into the future of this division, because this division is always loaded. You know what I mean? It's been loaded. When I started the channel, you had guys like Canelo, Demetrius Andrade, Vanes Martirosyan, Arislandi Lara, the Charlo twins, Austin Trout. You have all of these guys that would take L's, Julia J. Rock Williams. I felt like this division has always been a solid division, right? Loaded with talent, because you had a bunch of guys that probably could fight at 160 but can make weight at 154. And you had a bunch of guys that always moved up from 147 moving up to 154 and taking some fights up here. Even Floyd Mayweather did it. Manny Pacquiao did it. You just had a bunch of guys that would eventually move up to 54 from 47, right? So look, I was going to do a couple videos, right? I wanted to make a video on Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is going to promo run for whatever. Keith Thurman randomly goes on these runs where he's doing a ton of interviews. He was at the Manny Pacquiao Mario Barrios event, and he did a ton of interviews, and he called out a whole lot of people. He even had a back and forth with Jermell Charlo on FaceTime, right? So you saw that. He called out Boots Ennis. He called out, he talked about Tim Tszyu and Fedora. He basically called out the entire division. He even called out a few guys that's at 47 and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about Keith. I want to talk a little bit about Boots and some of the other fighters in the division. We just got Tim Tszyu against Sebastian Fedora. We saw how that ended. And I just wanted to break it down, because this is the thing with the division. There's no excuses here. You got Turkey. He's fully involved in these fighters. And I feel like there's a lot of fighters that are all with different promoters. It's not like a full-fledged PBC division anymore. You have a lot of fighters from everywhere, and I think that because we have Riyadh season and stuff like that, and because you got promoters that are actually working together now, I don't think there's any excuse for us to not get big fights. I don't think there's any real reason behind it, unless you're coming off of a loss, or you coming off a streak of tough fights. This division is loaded, and there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of opposition there. There's no reason for us to have dog fights in this division, with the talent we have here. I actually think Fedora and Tim Tszyu was probably the most action-packed fight that we had throughout the weekend, in my opinion. So with that being said, let's begin. Keith Thurman. Let's start out with Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman did a promo run. He's just doing a lot of press, and he's calling out everybody. Now, he made his return, I think it was earlier this year, against the Australian Brock Jarvis, right? Knocks him out in 3 rounds, right? Nothing special, but at least he got back in the ring. Keith Thurman calls out of a lot of people. He calls everybody out. He's calling out Boots the most. He goes in there with Jermell Charlo. He wants Fedora. I think Fedora is a really realistic fight, because they're both PBC, and I can just see that fight happening. Keith has a name, right? I know he's not active, but he has enough clout, and he's done enough in the sport to get a big fight. I think anybody should want to fight him if the money's right. It's a respectable win. I don't think Keith is in his prime, but he's only lost to one person. The one thing about Keith, and Keith was at one point was like one of my top 2-3 favorite fighters in the sport. At one point he was. At one point after Floyd and Manny started to get a little older, I thought Keith was the next guy up. But there was a lot of fights. As much trash as Keith likes to talk, and I love it. It's very entertaining. I was there throughout the whole process, and I do think that he should have got his opportunity to fight Floyd, but he didn't get Floyd, but he did get Manny Pacquiao, and he lost that fight. But he did fight Sean Porter. He did fight Danny Garcia, and he did fight Robert Guerrero, which are his top three fights in his career. But there's still a lot of people he didn't fight. And then there are fights that he did not want or his team did not want because he, along with Danny Garcia, Errol Spence Jr., and other fighters that's over there, they froze out Terrence Bud Crawford. Let's be honest. When Bud went up there, all of them were like, he needs to get a belt. He's part of that group of fighters that did not. And I believe Top Rank sent him a very good offer to fight, which he didn't take. Now, I know I'm not saying that Keith ducked all of these guys. I know there was a lot of injuries throughout the period of that time where he was, fighting, coming in, he was taking 2 years off, 3 years off. There was a lot of injuries. Even the Sean Porter fight, there was an injury before that fight. You know what I mean? This was a lot of injuries throughout the year with Keith Thurman. He's been plagued with injuries. He was supposed to fight Tim Tszyu last year, and he got injured, and he had to pull out the fight. And that's when everything went downhill for Tim Tszyu. So when Keith says everybody should fight me, I'm worth it, I got the name, I got this and that. Yeah, I hear you. I would love to see Keith Thurman fight, but I also understand that there's a liability there. I don't think it's just about fighting Keith Thurman. There's a liability because Keith Thurman may not make it to the fight. And he said that himself in this interview. In one of his interviews, he said that himself. There is a huge possibility that you may not make it to your own fight. And all these fighters, they train, they prepare for you, and then you pull out because you caught an injury. Will Keith Thurman make it to the fight? I don't know. It's a great fight for anybody. And when I break down this division, the reason why this division is so great to me because you got a mixture of everybody. You got the older seasoned guys like Keith Thurman. You have Jamel Charlo, who was former undisputed champion at the division, right? You got Errol Spence if he comes out of retirement, because at this point he's pretty much retired until he fights again. So you got guys like that that's been there, seasoned guys that have names. They have their losses, but there's still money there, and there's still like good fights that could be made with the older guys. Then you got the current guys that's been champions or whatever. I know Terrence Crawford is at the division, but he's fighting Canelo, so he's not involved, right? But you have the current guys that are either moved up or they already have the names and accomplishments. They've been champions or they have big names. You got Conor Benn, right? Even though he's fighting Eubank Jr. again, he's still there. He's officially 154 guy, right? So you have Conor Benn, you got Virgil Ortiz Jr., you got Sebastian Fedor, you got Jerron Boots Ennis when he fights at 54. You got let's see, and then you got like guys like Erison Lubin, seasoned guy. You got Bohachuk, you got Madrimov, you got Charles Conway. You still got Tim Tszyu. You still got a lot of fighters. You got Bakram Murtazaliev, who's a champion there that no one really wants to take the fight. Too much risk, not much reward. I feel like that's how everybody's looking at it. And then you got young, up-and-coming guys like Xander Sayers, who's going to be fighting this week in New York for the Top Rank on ESPN. He's going to be headlining this weekend. So we got a mixture and variety of young guys, old guys. You can mix them up. You can make the old guys fight the old guys. You can make the newer, younger guys, fresh guys, prime guys fight each other. There's a nice variety of fights that can be made. Boot, I don't know what he's doing. I strongly suggested that he make a statement fight in his first fight up. He's looking for a tune-up. Shout out to Nestor from the Boxing Voice. He had an interview recently with Turkey al-sheikh, doing a phenomenal job over there in the Boxing Voice, man. They are on there 24/7 making content. But Nestor Gibbs had an interview with Turkey al-sheikh, and Turkey al-sheikh exposed the fact that Boots, they wanted a fight with Virgil Ortiz. They tried to make a fight with him. Team Jaron Ennis wants a tune-up in the first fight. I don't know what's going on over there, but at this point, I'm not saying from 47 because I made a lot of videos about Boots and the Crawford thing, the Spence thing. It seems like, and even Virgil Ortiz, something is up with these guys. And it's not just him, but with him, it's been a lot. But something is up. And I'm not going to put him to blame for all of the fights because it's been a lot of fighters, right? It's been Crawford. It's been Virgil Ortiz. It's been Brian Norman Jr. I'm not going to put him at fault for every situation. But for whatever reason, there's always an issue with making certain fights with Boots, you know? And at this point, we did not get one fight. There's one thing that's been said in one interview. You know, he'll say this at the end of a fight. His dad will say one thing. He says one thing. They contradict each other sometimes. When it comes to Boots, I have questions, all right? I'm a big fan of Boots. I'm not going to go too crazy at him, but at the end of the day, it can't be everybody else's fault that some of these fights are not happening. You know what I mean? I just think that they're moving too slow. You know, I think Virgil Ortiz, who is his direct rival, in my opinion, should that fight should at least happen. That fight could have happened at 47. You know, those are the fights that need to happen because you guys at one point were direct. You guys were going in the same direction up at 47. You guys were the young bucks. You know, and I think that Boots, even though he's with Matchroom now and he's not with Showtime over there, he's not with his former promoter, he's with Matchroom, and for whatever reason, we're still having a hard time with getting him into some of these bigger fights, you know, and some of it is not his fault. He's the sanctioning bodies made him fight Zhukajan twice, ordered him to fight Zhukajan twice. The fight with Stanionis was definitely necessary and needed. You know, that was a good fight. But outside of the Stanionis fight, there's nothing going on, you know, and I think that I think the tune-up thing is very unnecessary, being the champion, being a unified champion, going up to a new division. I think he had a clear view, a clear lane to get right into a title shot or a big name fight. We might get a big name, but I suggested he should go straight at that Murtazayev, even though I know it's a dangerous fight. But that's a statement fight because everybody's looking at Bakram as the boogeyman of the 54 division. So he could have easily shut that down if he wanted to. Not saying that he needs to be the one to do it because I think Sebastian Fondor are unified with Bakram Murtazayev. You know, I think a lot of people should be doing certain things, but I'm not gonna put all the blame to him. I know at one point at 47, Virgil Ortiz, who kind of gets a pass for a lot of shit he says, at one point when he was questioning would he fight Boots, he was looking at bigger fish, wasn't looking at fighting Boots earlier in his career. Not even earlier, but when a time when he had a name and he started making noise of fighting good competition, he didn't want to fight Boots, you know, at one point at 47. You know, people don't remember that. People don't tend to forget about the Terrence Crawford situation with the WBO. Virgil Ortiz as well, even though he's been taking a better opposition than Boots, definitely. But there were periods where he didn't want to fight Boots in the beginning. You know, I know when it came to the contract itself at 54, Boots turned it down. But when I mean that, there was a point where Virgil wasn't really looking for that fight. There was a point where he didn't want to have to fight with Terrence Crawford as well, even though a lot of people were trying to make it seem like Crawford was stuck in him at 47, which was bullshit. But we know what that was about. So I think a lot of these guys at 54 have so many options. All of them do, you know. And they don't have to be title fights. They don't all have to be title fights. There's some names. There's names there, and there's titles there, you know, and there's top contenders there, you know. Madrimov coming off 2 losses, I think it's time for him to have a tune-up fight. You know, I think I think Tim Tszyu, I think those are the guys that deserve some kind of a tune-up or two because they coming off of losses, especially Tim Tszyu. He's been stopped and two in his last three fights. So I think guys like him, those guys, yeah, definitely tune-ups. But for the majority of everybody else that's there, when I look at this list, Erickson Lubin, let's get him in the ring with one of these guys. Let's get Xander Zayas if he wins this Saturday. Let's get him in there. He wanted Virgil Ortiz too. Then Virgil Ortiz didn't take that fight because he ended up fighting Madrimal. So that's understandable. But Xander Zayas, it's time for him to step up, either fighting a champion or a top contender. He should be fighting the top 10 guy in his very, very next fight, or an older seasoned guy. If Jamel Charlo is going to come back, if Errol Spence comes back, if Keith Thurman can get in the ring without getting injured again, I would love to see a shot between him, one of these newer guys, one of these younger champions, and anybody else. Bohachuk, let's get him back in the ring. We had a great fight with Virgil Ortiz, a fight that many of us thought Bohachuk won. It was a very close fight, but that's another guy, Jesus Ramos. What's up with him? He lost to Lubin. It was a close fight. What's up with him? Let's get him back in the ring. If he's going to stick at 54, I don't know if he's going to be at 60 or 54, but if he's going to be at 54, there's a lot of names down there. This is what I'm saying. There's a lot of opportunities here. I would love for Conor Ben at some point, whenever he's done with Eubank, I would love to see him in the ring with one of these guys that I just named. I would love to see it. I'm sure it's there to do it. I'm sure if Conor Ben wasn't fighting Eubank Jr. in a rematch, I'm sure we would be seeing Keith Thurman against Conor Ben. That sounds so realistic to me. An older guy with a name, with a newer, fresher guy that has a huge name and he's got a lot of momentum. I can see that happening before I see Conor Ben first fight Virgil Ortiz or a Jerron Ennis. I can see the Keith Thurman fight because it's a less, I don't want to say it's a, well, I'm saying it's a less dangerous fight because Keith is older and people wouldn't expect that to be as a more dangerous fight right now. But again, we can mix match all of these fights here. I just hope that someone fights Baccarat. Someone needs to fight this guy. We can't duck him forever. He has a title. Hopefully someone is going to get him in there with him. I mean, even if it's a seasoned older guy, I really hope Jamel Charlo makes his ring return soon. I mean, it's been too long. And I don't think, at this point, unless it's another name or unless it's another guy that's been inactive like he has, I would love to see Jamel Charlo come back and fight Keith Thurman, on his first one back. I know Keith Thurman just got in the ring, but he only got 3 rounds against a guy that's way below his level, So yes, it's activity, but not really. But we have a lot of options here, and I wanted to bring up some of those options. Again, I'm going to get on out of here. Please subscribe. Let me know in the comments, what fights do you want to see? Out of these 10, 12, 15 guys, you can mix and match them any way you want. Like me, I don't really have a problem. There are certain guys I expect to have a tune-up or two before getting a big fight. I'm expecting Jamel Charlo to have some sort of a tune-up. I'm expecting Errol Spence to have some sort of a tune-up, even though he says he doesn't like tune-ups. If he comes back, there's a lot that could happen here and that should happen here because this is a great division. It's a loaded division and there's no excuses. All right. And this even gets some unifications, But anyway, let me know in the comments, what are the top 2 or 3 fights you want to see at 154 right now? What are the top 2 or 3? Drop that in the comments. I'm going to be looking forward to reading your comments. I'm out of here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys again soon. Peace.